Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today we're going to find out what exactly is in this box. It's a Bergerpanther. Okay, mystery solved. Video over.
You're so funny.
Okay, so this was another impulse buy because one of the places I shop at had a Boxing Day sale, and this was significantly discounted. I can't help myself. I have a problem. I've never built a Bergerpanther before, and I thought I do like burgers, and it sounds a bit like burger, so why not? This is, as you can probably tell from the box, a 35th scale model from Takom, which has a full interior. That means there's a lot of parts, which makes this box quite the thick boy. Thumbs up for scale. I know it's not the traditional banana, but it'll do. Here's the pile of sprues, fresh out of the box. All of these are individually wrapped, which means if anything's been knocked off any of the sprues, you shouldn't have too much trouble finding it. Okay, let's have a look at these bits and pieces. In an effort to reduce redundant comments, and repeatedly saying that parts look nice and such, I'll say now that the parts in this box are really neatly moulded, and are of a high quality that I've come to expect from Takom. There are mould lines, and you will have to clean those up, along with the nubbins that you will inevitably leave when removing the parts from the sprues, but that shouldn't be too much work in the grand scheme of things. The sheer number of parts does make it a bit of a job, but at least it's not going to be a hard job. I was unable to find any obvious defects or errors, though in fairness, I didn't perform any in-depth examinations or anything like that, so if there are any less than obvious problems with the parts, I'll probably find them while building. I will, of course, mention those in the build video, or if you watch the live build streams, you'll get to see them live, if they do happen to occur. The details look pretty good. If you're new here, you might be surprised to learn that I'm not an expert on the various parts of tanks, and I'm not a rivet counter, so I'm not going to pretend to have some knowledge on the accuracy of these parts or anything like that, but they do look rather good to me. And as a modeler, I can see good, well-moulded details, regardless of historical accuracy. The pictures I'm showing in the background illustrate that better than anything I can say would, so I guess I'm just waffling as these pictures go by. There are a lot of small parts in this kit, so I'm sure I'm going to have to be very careful not to lose any when I start building. I would really prefer not to feed the carpet monster. A lot of these small parts are probably for the interior. You can see, at some point, I have no idea if this voiceover is going to line up with any of the parts I talk about, but you can see there are even torsion bars for the suspension. I don't know how visible they're going to be. I'm probably going to have to contrive some way to have at least a large percentage of the interior visible. This doesn't really seem like the kind of kit where I would be happy to omit interior details that wouldn't be seen. It could be just a case of modelling hatches open, but maybe some magnetization is in order to make the whole top removable. If anybody's built this kit with magnetization, I'd be keen to read your thoughts in the comments below. In addition to a lot of internal components, there seems to be a lot of tools, and that makes a lot of sense, being that this is a recovery vehicle. There's a crane which I think looks pretty interesting, and I was kind of surprised to see that the main portion of that is a single piece. That should make things not only a little bit easier to build, but a little bit stronger too. This is definitely going to be a long-term project, and I'm almost certainly going to have to stop at least once partway through to paint internal parts. Obviously I don't know because I haven't even started the build yet, but it looks like there's going to be some pretty hard to reach parts inside the hull. Even without having to stop for painting, I can see this taking a fairly long time to put together just because of the sheer number of parts. It's a safe assumption that the small parts are going to be fiddly, which will, of course, also increase the build time. Not that that's a bad thing. This is a kit, so it's good that you'd get a lot of modelling time out of it. Here are the guide horns for the tracks. I know, looking at these it does seem like it's going to be really tedious to do, but I feel like it's probably not going to be quite as bad as some other track sets. It looks as though you'll be able to glue some, if not all of these guide horns, onto the tracks without completely removing them from their sprues, and that should make things a little better. The tracks are link and length, so while the guide horns could be a bit of a pain in the butt, it probably won't be quite as fiddly as individual track links can be. It's definitely going to be better than rubber band tracks at least, in my opinion. This difficult to photograph item, or items better, are a jig for the tracks. I don't know how helpful it's going to be. Hopefully quite a bit. It looks like it might be the kind of plastic that plastic cement struggles to melt, which would be nice for obvious reasons, though I have no idea if that's actually the case or not. I've not tested it. This is obviously all stuff that I'll get around to figuring out when I start building the thing. Anyway, that's all the plastic in the kit. There is a bunch of other stuff though, like photo etch, and I'm both happy and kind of surprised that the only photo etch in this kit are some grills. They do look pretty good. There's a sheet of decals, and they're pretty simple. A couple of crosses, a number, some gauges, and other things I can't identify. I don't suppose you really need more than this, but in 35th scale, there's probably a wide variety of aftermarket decals you could get if you wanted. We get some towing cable, which, for a recovery vehicle, is probably kind of important. I am kind of annoyed that there's a kink in it, but hopefully we can get appropriate cable lengths out of that, or maybe we can fix that. There's also a couple of bits of chain. I suspect chains are kind of important for a recovery vehicle. These are probably specifically for use with the crane. You could, of course, add more chain yourself. They would probably carry a fair bit of it, but it is nice that they've included some, so you don't have to supply your own. And finally, the instruction booklet. I've not studied these in any kind of detail, though they usually say that you should, but it's not like I'm going to remember anything when it comes time to build. Anyway, they do look to be pretty clear and easy to understand and follow, and as always, if that's not the case, I'll mention any problems I have in the build video, and probably get bamboozled by them live on stream. I do know that there is one mistake, and I know that because they've included a correction. The differences are too subtle for me to see at a glance, but it's obviously worth paying attention to. I assume everything else is correct, and following these instructions should lead to a nice looking model. There's a couple of painting and marking guides, and some good pictures of the painted interior, which I think is pretty helpful. And that's what's in the box. I'm pretty excited to get started with this. I think it's going to be a fun and interesting build. It is also going to have a lot of fiddly parts, which does have potential for a bit of frustration, but that's okay. I'm not anticipating it to be too bad. It does kind of look like the way the instructions want the kit to go together isn't very conducive to having the internal detail visible, so I'm going to have to come up with ways to make installing those internal parts not completely pointless, but that's for future Herbert to worry about. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to start building this kit. I do need to get a couple of other builds out of the way first, but it will be relatively soon. Keep an eye on my Twitch schedule for when the build streams start. YouTube doesn't seem to have a schedule feature for streams, so if you don't want to watch Twitch, just keep an eye out, I guess. Either way, the build will start soon, and it's going to be fun. Obviously there will be a build video too, but that's going to be even further in the future. It's probably not going to be a quick edit. That's probably enough waffling from me. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comments section below. If you like what I do, and are able to do so, consider supporting over on Patreon or Ko-fi. Links to Twitch and Discord and everything else are in the description below. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.